All right, everyone. So you may have already tried answering these questions. If you haven't, then you're all good. There was a couple typos in here that Miss Thompson mistakenly made, right? So before it said this number here was 66, but it's just supposed to be 6. So I corrected all those typos, but I am so sorry about that for anyone who was confused. Okay, I still wanted to give you guys a video where I was solving this, at least the first problem, right? Because just to illustrate a strategy that you could use just to help yourself solve. Okay, so first, right? First, I always recommend, and actually, let me even go start from the top, right? I've got my question here, as you can see, right? And then I have this show your work button. So I can either read the question now, I can read the question later, but I do have to click my show your work button before I'll be able to actually do any work on my screen, right? So same for you, right? So that's very important. Make sure you click on that show your work button. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read the question out loud. So a cafe made $3,600 from hot chocolate sales in December. That is 6 times the amount of money made from hot chocolate sales in September. How much more money did the cafe make from hot chocolate sales in December than in September? Show your work, problem solving strategies. All right. So we can choose any of these strategies that we want to solve. Now, another thing we talked about this week was a KWL chart. So I'm going to make use of my KWL chart to help me organize my thoughts around this particular problem and how to solve it. Right? We know that K stands for know, right? Know. W stands for want to know, or it could also stand for wonder. And then L stands for learn, right? So that's where the KWL comes from. All right, so let's think about this. Let's think about, what do we know? What do we know? We know, let's see. The information we know is, of course, going to be what's given to us in the question. So we know, for example, in the first sentence, that $3,600 was made, or let's see, made $3,600 from sales in December, right? They tell us this, December. I'm just going to abbreviate December as DEC, December. All right, and we also know, right, from the second sentence that it is 6 times, right? So in other words, $3,600 is 6 times the amount made in September. Right? This is all provided to us in the problem itself, right? From the first sentence and the second sentence. Let me just make my little chart a little bit longer there. Okay. Now what we want to know is, of course, the answer to the problem, right? So here we can take a minute to highlight, what is the question asking us to find, right? So in this case, question is definitely asking us, right, to figure out how much more money, and they're talking about dollars here, so how much more money was made in December, right? And I abbreviated that as DEC, compared to September. They don't tell us. They tell us that it's in December they made 6 times the amount, but they don't tell us the amount, right? They want us to find the dollar amount. The dollar amount. All right. So definitely once we find our answer, we can put that in our learned column, right? That's what that last column is kind of like reserved for. All right. And we also, right, we just need to know how much money was made, how much more money was made in December than September. But of course, before we can know that, we have to know how much money was made in September. Right, and then once we know that, then we can figure out how much more money was made in December than September, right? But first, we have to figure out how much money was made in September, right? And that is actually the first part of like the first step we need to do to solve this problem, right? Figure out how much money was made in September, right? So that's my first step. So that's what I'm going to do. Label this as first. All right. Now, let's put together what we know, right? Let's try to like put together the things we know, the things we're looking for into an equation, right? Into a number sentence. So whenever somebody says that some number, so $3,600 in this case, right, is 6 times the amount made in September. So that, right, we got that keyword times, right? We're talking about multiplication. So I just underlined times and put the multiplication sign, right? So we know that the amount made in December, 3,600 or 3,600, is 6 times the amount made in September, right? So that is the same thing as saying 6 times, right, dollars from September. So I'll just put $sign and then SEP to represent September. All right. So we are multiplying in this number sentence I just made, right? But I made my number sentence by matching up my word problem, what I know from my word problem, right? So this is one example of creating number sentences to help solve word problems, right? Now, as we have been talking about, right, multiplication is the opposite, the inverse of division. And because of that, right, I know that my unknown in this case, right, my unknown is this, right? The money that was made in September. That's my unknown, right? I know how much they made in December, and I know how much more, it was 6 times more, right, than in September, but I don't know yet how much money they made in September. So here's where the relationship between division and multiplication comes into play, right? We've got 36,000 or 3,600, aka $3,600 from December. We can divide that by 6 to get the total amount of money from hot chocolate sales in September. Right? So in the orange equation, right, the first number sentence I came up with, we're multiplying. Now, I made a second number sentence here where I'm dividing, right? But if you notice, my dividend remains the same, right? My dividend is 3,600 because that's the total, right? That's the total sales in December. Total sales in December. So that's my dividend. My divisor in this case is my 6 times, right? So my 6 here is my divisor because, right, that's what's going to help me figure out, right? That's the comparison made between December and September, right? September has to be a less amount of money than December, which makes sense, right? Because usually we want hot chocolate in colder weather, right? Then September might still be in the 90s, right? So it all makes sense. So then a couple different ways you could approach actually solving this, right? One method that we've been using in class a lot is the place value chart. So I think that's a great place to start. So we've got draw our place value charts, right? We've got thousands. I'm going to abbreviate that as TH, thousands. Then we've got our hundreds. I'm going to abbreviate that as HUN. And then we've got our tens placed next. Tens followed by our ones, please. All right. So just like we've been doing in class with these practice problems, right? We have to represent our number on our dividend, right? Specifically our dividend on our place value chart. So I'm going to underline my dividend here in pink. So that's going to be 3 under my thousands column, 6 in my hundreds, 0 tens, and 0 ones. All right, so I can also use my shapes here to help me with drawing my dots, right? So I'm going to draw 3 circles for my thousands, and then 6 in my hundreds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And one thing to keep in mind, right? Because we might get confused here that in our tens and ones place, right? Those are not dots; those are in fact zeros, right? So I would probably just draw like some kind of line through them so that we know, oh yeah, those are not dots, right? Our dots are here. Those are zeros from our dividend. Okay. Now the next step, which I'm sure we know, right? We're probably saying it out loud right now. Our next step is to create our rows. And the amount of rows we need is the same number as our divisor, right? And our divisor in this case is definitely 6. So in other words, we need 6 rows. So one row, 2 rows, 3 rows, 4 rows, 5 rows, and a 6th row. All right, so lots of rows here. I'm just going to extend my columns because that way it just makes it very clear when a dot is in the thousands place or the hundreds place or the tens place or the ones place, and I don't get confused. That's important. All right, so here we are, right? We've got our rows, 6 rows because our divisor is 6, right? 6 equal groups. And then we've got our number represented, our dividend represented. So we are ready to get started dividing up into fair shares each of our dots. Okay, so we can start with our thousands place. We have to, in fact, right? Because we got to start with the largest place value. The largest place value always comes first. So when we're dividing. So, right, start here. Now I notice I've got 3, right? I've got 3 in my thousands place, which means I don't have enough. I don't have enough because I need to make 6 groups. I need to have at least 6. Otherwise, I can't do it, right? I don't have enough to share it fairly, right? If it was 3,000, if we're talking about $3,000, my brother gets $1,000, I don't get $1,000. That's not fair, right? So we got to make sure that we are splitting it up equally, which means that I need to decompose, right? I need to break down my 3,000s, unbundle them back into the 30 hundreds, right? So it's each thousand has 10 hundreds. So that's why I'm going to wind up with 30 more dots under my hundreds column. So let me do that. Let's draw those 30 dots. All right. So I've got 6 to start with, right? So by the end of this, when I finish drawing my dots, I should have a total of 36, right? So if I get a little bit lost or a little bit confused, the way I can double check my work is to make sure, right, that the number of dots I have matches the number I should have, right? So I started with 6, I'm bringing over 3,000s, so I should have a total of 3,600s when all is said and done. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and a 30. All right, so I've drawn my 30 circles and I already had those 6, so now I know I'm good to go. So the next step is going to be distributing my 36 dots, right, into equal size groups of 6. So that we have 6 rows. So I can do 6 at a time. I can distribute 6 at a time. So start. So I start, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Awesome. And now I need to drop 1 circle into each of my rows. That was supposed to be a circle and not a line. Oh no. Okay, there we go. That undo button, very helpful sometimes. All right, so 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Awesome. Now I go back to my next 6, right? Because I still have a bunch of dots, so I can do another group of 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so I can do another 6 and put another circle in each row. So 1, 2, 2 in each row. Each of my 6 rows. Okay. All right, then I go back. Right, I know I still have more circles to go. So another 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, then I can do my 6 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, then I need another 6. So I can cross off another 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Drop another 6 in my groups. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And then another 6, right? Because I still have more available. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, make some more circles here. So I can drop another circle in each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and then let's see if I have enough to make another group of 6. So let's see, 1. Oops, still on circles. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, excellent. So I've got 6 there, so that means I can put 1 more circle in each group. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Very cool. All right. Then after I do that, I look to my tens place because that's the next biggest place value, right? And I don't have any dots. And I also don't have any dots in my ones place, right? So actually, right, I'm done dividing up my number. I've accounted for all of my 3,600, right? My dividend. And you probably noticed that that's because they all wound up in my hundreds column, right? I wound up with 36 dots in my hundreds column that I had to break up into groups of 6, equal size groups of 6. All right, so right, the next step after making sure that all of the dots are accounted for, right, is to go back and count how many dots you have in each column, right? In each column of one row, right? That's very important. Only one row, because each row has the same exact amount of dots, right? That's the whole point, because we're dividing up into groups of 6, right? So these 6 groups have the same amount of dots. All right. Now, as I can see, there are no dots in my thousands. Oops, stop the circles. No dots in my thousands column, right? So in my quotient, I'm not going to have any because I don't have any. And that's fine. Don't need to have anything in thousands. All right. In my hundreds, I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 hundreds, and then I've got no tens and no ones, right? So when I have 6 dots in my hundreds column, that means that I have a total, right? My quotient is 600 because it's in my hundreds column. If it was in a different column, right, then it would be a different value. But since it's in my hundreds, I know that my quotient, right, is 600. So which means that the amount of money made in September from hot chocolate sales is $600, right? Because $600 now it is going to be 6 times, if I were to take $600, right? If I wanted to check my work, which is always a good idea, right? Make a little box here, check our work. Check our work. Check, check, check. All right, so I would take my $600 that I got as my quotient, multiply that by my divisor, which was 6. And so I would take 600, multiply it by 6. And so 6 times 0 in my ones will give me 0 ones. 6 times 0 in my tens will give me 0 tens. And then 6 times 6, well, 6 times 6 is 36, right? So that means, right, that number might look a little familiar. And that's because it's our dividend, right? It goes back to our dividend, which means we know we found the correct answer, right? So in other words, we can go back to our learn column, to indicate that, oh, the amount of money made, right? The amount of money made in September is $600, right? So $600 was made in September. Now, the question becomes, right, did we answer the question, right? Have we completely answered the question, right? And so I encourage you to like pause this video for a second and think about, did we answer the question, right? We found that $600 was made in September. Does that answer the question that we were asked, right? And here's the thing. This is why it can be very helpful to use a KWL chart to help us make sense of all this stuff. So let me just extend this column here. Okay. So we just determined, right, that in September they made $600. So we just found the answer, in other words, to this second thing we wanted to know, right, which was how much money was made in September. Right? So we found that out. $600 was made in September. Right? Well, we haven't yet though, right? We haven't yet found out how much more money was made in December compared to September, right? We've only found out how much was made in September. So the way, as you're probably guessing, right, the way we can figure this out to figure out how much more was made in December is subtraction, right? We would take the amount made in in December, which was 3,600, and subtract the amount we made in September, right? Because we're trying to figure out how much more was made in December. So take 3,600 and subtract from that 600, we get a total of 3,000, right? Which means that when all is said and done, we made, or the cafe made, let's see, 3,000 more. More was made in December than September. And then what I would do to try to make this, make it very clear what your answer is, what your answer to the question is here, is I would make a box, right, around what your answer is. This is always a good idea, for any grade you could possibly be in. This is a good habit to get into, right? Say, okay, this is my answer. This right here is my answer. Oops. No, right, so nobody can be like, wait, I didn't see your answer. No, it's right here, right? You can make little stars and say, this is my answer, right? Especially when there's so much space, right? That we've done a lot of work to solve this problem. So we've answered the question, right? We know that $3,000 more was made in December than in September. So we have answered our question. All right, so it's a similar process for these other problems as well. All right, do your best, do your best, do your best as always. And I want to see your work. I want to see what questions you're asking yourself, right? I want to see where potentially you are getting mixed up. This is all information to help me get better at teaching you. All right, so please, please, please keep up any questions you have. All right.